Sisters and brothers, AFT Connecticut in 2005 joined the Connecticut Coalition for Justice in Education Funding versus Rel lawsuit to pursue the resources required to provide a quality education to all Connecticut students, regardless of where they live. Our union members' commitment to the values of equity in education and social justice for all is evident in our steadfast support of the coalition over the past 11 years. The Connecticut Superior Court judge's recent decision has elements that are impossible to deny. He noted the disparity in education cost-sharing funding between communities of affluence and those facing poverty, a disparity that only has increased over the past decade. He also detailed some of the ways our state's under-resourced urban schools are underperforming, while those in the more appropriately funded suburbs are thriving. We applaud the judge's frankness about some of the real problems facing Connecticut's urban schools. Yet his decision does not address a primary component of CJF's case, adequacy in funding. We know there are evidence-based educational programs that, if adequately resourced, could empower urban districts to provide their students with the same opportunities as their suburban peers. Instead, the judge stated that, beyond a bare minimum, it is for the legislature to decide on how much to spend on schools. He then argued that the state far exceeds that minimal standard and therefore tossed out our coalition's baseline, claiming that the current funding formula is unconstitutional. While the judge chose a very narrow view of the court's role in determining adequacy in funding, he took an expansive role elsewhere. He insisted that while the amount of educational funding is adequate, how it is distributed is not. He decided that there is not a sufficient definition of success in schools and called for rigorous, mandated standards for student promotion and graduation. The judge also demanded a radical change in special education funding, but did not identify any specific new approach. To be considered constitutional, he said the changes must be rational, substantial, and verifiable. The judge alone will be left to decide what meets those elusive standards. New systems for teacher evaluation and compensation were also included in the judge's sweeping decision. He said that an evaluation system finding 98% of teachers adequate is unacceptable, and further claims that teachers should not be compensated solely on degrees or experience. His conclusions regarding accountability are simply wrong. I am not aware of any evaluation system with a requirement resembling what the judge appears to have demanded. Additionally, the vast majority of evidence demonstrates that educators should have a say in how they are evaluated in order for any system to be effective. Further, teacher compensation is negotiated, not mandated by state statute. If there is going to be a varying method to compensate teachers, they must be arrived at through the bargaining process with educators at the table. Finally, the judge insisted that plans for compliance with his decision be presented in 180 days, an unreasonable time frame, considering current political and economic pressures facing state lawmakers. Attorney General George Jepsen filed an appeal of the decision, which has since been granted by the state Supreme Court. CJF has insisted that if the decision is to be reviewed in part, it must be reviewed in full, including the decision on adequacy of funding. Now we await the appeal process, which is likely to be a lengthy one. We continue to stand with the coalition because equality and access to education is one of our core values. It is not our only core value, however. We also believe that students learn best when educational decisions are made with the input of educators in the classroom. We believe that contracts bargained in good faith must be respected. We believe that the evaluation system overhaul currently being negotiated between public and education stakeholders must continue. We will not betray these values in this process or any other. I welcome your thoughts and comments, and I thank you for your commitment to your profession, your students, and your community.